Welcome back, football fans, to another episode of Necessary Roughness brought to you by Bite Size Sports. We are here every Tuesday. My name's John. As always, I'm joined by Nick. Today we're talking QBs, wide receivers. We'll each give our top 15. I'm sure that'll open up a little discourse. Light us up in the chat if we missed your favorite guy. We were just talking pre-show how the receivers were tough to, that like 11 to 15 is a really tough group to whittle down. A lot of guys worth some honorable mention, I'm sure. But let us know in the chat who we missed, who we have too high, too low, and things like that. We will definitely talk about those comments as we move through our rankings. But it's off-season time, so we're doing stuff like this. There's not a ton of news. There's not a ton of new developments. But we'll jump right into it. Before we do, Nick, my friend, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. Just graduated college a couple of days ago, so I'm excited. So we're lit. I'm excited to talk some ball. We're back, maybe. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Okay, we've got a little bit of Green 80 might light you up, Nick. I was looking at your list. We'll talk about it.
Yeah, because I don't have any Seahawks on
there. Eagles fan might light us up if we're low on A.J. Brown. We'll see how that goes. But, yeah, let's get into it. Let's go receivers first, actually. Quarterbacks will be fun too, but we were just talking so much about it. Moving through these things, we'll go through your rankings first, and we can kind of mix mine in as we go, as we compare and contrast a little bit, and then we'll see what chat has to say, of course, once we get those up. So I'm going to have those ticking across the bottom of the screen right now. But talk us through it a little bit, and then I'll interject with a few things that stood out to me. But yeah, talk us through that top 15 of yours. I know you got the right guy up top, so let's start there.
We got the right guy up top. I think everybody knows at this point. Jay Jettis, Justin Jefferson's the best receiver in football. He's really proved that over the last few years. Yeah, he's him. He's that guy.
Mm-hmm.
When the Bills traded for Diggs, I was very excited, and I didn't know what was going to happen with like the Vikings pick, and
knew it was coming.
He's not happy about it.
Knew it was coming.
I know. But yeah, so they did a great job, selecting Justin Jefferson with that. Was it 21 or 22? I believe it was
22.
Yeah. Awesome pick, able to get him. And he's been just the best receiver in football ever since he's, stepped on the field. Obviously, then I'm going to put Chase and Hill at 2 and 3. I guess they can go back and forth if you're a Miami fan, maybe like Tyreek. But Jamar has just been unbelievable. When they were able to, link up for the first time in college, I think that everybody saw the chemistry that they were able to have. And I think the Bengals, front office also saw that because they definitely could have gone offensive line in that draft that they selected Jamar Chase in. And a lot of people were not happy with the fact that they went with Chase, but it completely worked out. He's really proven himself as well. So yeah, Lee Harding. Yes, I know 7 and 8 are questionable. I agree with you, but I think that Devontae Adams and DeAndre Hopkins are both guys that are just proven in this league. And even though Devontae didn't, go with Derek Carr and have the best season he's ever had, I know that. But I think that getting away from him now is actually going to be better for his career than sticking with the guy. I think that they tried that out, being best friends, and I don't think that really works. It's kind of when you go to college with like your best friend from high school and it doesn't work out, and you need somebody else, you need some fresh blood. They tried to do that, and it was just kind of weird and awkward. Then we got Hopkins. I think that he's a new situation. He would be number like 13 if he's still playing with Arizona. I think that he's going to be dealt. So in that case, if he's dealt to one of these better teams around the league, he's got a better chance of being in that top 10 again, because he was at one point just a couple of years ago regarded as one of the top, if not the top 3 wide receivers in football. So how could I put him outside the top 10? I can't.
Lee, I'm curious to see what you mean. If you mean they're higher than you would have them,
Yeah.
Because well,
Yeah,
we'll
maybe
see my
he's
list
talking
in a
about the
second. But
200
yeah,
low. I don't know. But
yeah,
I just
exactly.
felt like, Hill is an obvious top 3 pick. A.J. Brown is just an absolute tank. I think everybody knows this at this point. He made Ryan Tannehill who he was. When he
Yeah,
left, it was so evident that he wasn't able to do the same things, and they relied too much on Derrick Henry. And then Jalen Hurts gets him and Devontae Smith, and it's just a completely different player. So A.J. Brown, I really value, what a wide receiver can do for a quarterback a lot. And I thought A.J. Brown did wonders for Jalen Hurts. But
yeah.
when you see where I got Jalen Hurts on my quarterback list, you'll see what I mean by that. Then I got Diggs as a Bills fan. I can't count him out of the top 5 just yet. I'm sure there'll be somebody that gives him a run for his money this year. And then I got Cooper Kupp. I mean, he was everybody's number 1 last year. He won the Triple Crown before he got injured. Won the Super Bowl MVP. So he's got to be in the top 6 if he's going to be back healthy. And then
Tough to
Jalen
drop
Waddle,
too.
Debo Samuel, they're such similar guys. Do a lot for the team. Waddle's really going to come into his own this year, in my opinion. And then Keenan Allen, just a seasoned vet. He's been he's been with the Chargers for his whole career. He's been just a complete workhorse. He's an incredible player. And then Terry McLaurin, Mike Evans, CeeDee Lamb, T. Higgins. These guys are all just, Evans is getting up there in age for sure, but McLaurin, Lamb, and Higgins, I love. I was thinking about the other guys that might be on that, trajectory, like Metcalf or Lockett in Seattle. Guys like Tyler Boyd could be there, but I just value Higgins a little more. So, yeah, that's my list of wide receivers. I think that, I don't know if I left anybody out that's too prominent, but if you want to like switch up a couple guys like in that list, that's fair. But I think I have the right guys for the most part.
Yeah, it's a little easier to do tiers with this kind of stuff. But doing that like within, like I wanted to cut it off at a number, and doing that within certain numbers can be a little difficult too, because we might have, within the 3rd or 4th tier of this 15, we might have like 5, 6 more players, and all of a sudden we're ranking 22 guys. But yeah, it's a solid list. Before we jump to mine, let's grab this question from Lee. What do you think about D-Hop being a Raven? They're getting everybody over there. I could see, it's funny because already coming into this season, it's the best group of pass catchers that Lamar has had his whole career. So getting D-Hop over there would be absolutely nuts. I would be big on that. I always liked the other purple team. But that would be huge for Lamar, especially if we don't see that same OBJ from the Super Bowl run. If he takes a step back, then suddenly it's not that deep of a group. You expect a lot of the Zay Flowers coming in. Rashad Bateman might kind of be what he is. He might just kind of be a wide receiver 2, 3 in this league. But again, he hasn't had a ton of opportunity with the way they call that offense either. So a lot of Mark Andrews. D-Hop would be a cool fit over there. Let's jump to mine here, and you guys can light me up this time. So this is why I was interested to see what Lee's thoughts were on guys like Devontae Adams, DeAndre Hopkins. Oh, yep, the war has begun. Green 80. But I really went back and forth at 2, and I ended up going Devontae. I just don't think that, because I kind of thought of this in the sense of like, all things being equal, who would I want on my team?
Yeah.
Sure. And I think if you give, Devontae a top 5 quarterback, you go all these guys a top 5 quarterback, I still think he's one of the best of the bunch. May have lost, he's over the 30-year-old hill, may have lost a little bit of a step, but he's still just so technically sound as a route runner. He has great hands. In the Stidham game, he was unbelievable last year against I can't remember who they were playing, but he was cooking up the sideline, and it was just there was that diving catch up the right boundary that's just was playing over and over in my head as I was going through this list, and I was like, man, from a body of work standpoint, and just in a vacuum of this season, I weighed all those things together. I think he's still got it. So I couldn't quite move him off of 2. But 3, I've got Chase. You had him right at 2. He's just an unbelievable physical talent. But so is A.J. Brown. And that's why I put A.J. Brown above Diggs, above Hill, above Kupp. I just think, the extent to which he can really take over a game if he's getting the right amount of targets is just so impactful. And when you think about the multiple touchdown games from last year, you think about the winning at the catch point, you think about how tough he is to bring down after the catch. I like him at 4, just a hair over Diggs there. Same justification as you for the Kupp spot. That's about as low as I was comfortable putting him.
Yeah.
But I've got Terry McLaurin at 8. And I think he's one of those guys, of the ilk of kind of like an Andre Johnson, where you think about, man, if this guy had some consistent, competent quarterback play, what kind of numbers and what kind of production would we be looking at? Because I think he's always sort of buoyed whatever quarterback's under center, just with his ability to win those contested catches. Just an awesome route runner. I've got Mike Evans at 9. He can afford to lose a step because I talked about the contested catch ability of a guy like Brown. Mike Evans is the epitome of that. He's that archetype, that X receiver up the boundary who's going to moss your best corner. The red zone threat. I think 9,000-yard seasons for Mike Evans.
Mm-hmm.
So the body of work plays into it a little bit for me, for sure. So it's tough to bring him any lower for me. And then I've got D-Hop too. Same kind of thing. Like I was when it was, between him and Devontae, and then Kupp was sort of getting up into that upper echelon early on, I was always in the DeAndre Hopkins camp. I thought he was at his best. Well, that's the same thing as the Terry McLaurin thing, actually. I was just talking about, like DeAndre Hopkins. He always just raised the floor of his quarterback. He was awesome in the Watson years, of course, but even before that, just fantastic hands. And even just as recently as last year, I saw him take over a game against my Minnesota Vikings and bring us to the brink. Rondale Moore had a little bit to do with that too, but so did Ed Donatel. So, but I still think Hopkins has plenty in the tank. I've got Debo at 11, DK at 12, Jalen Waddle at 13, 104 catches his rookie season. Came back with Hill on the opposite side and still had great production. He's one of the best receivers in the screen game. Blazing speed, up the seam, up the boundary. He can win in a lot of different ways. And then 14, 15 were easily the most difficult for me. I felt really good about my top 13, and then I just started racking my brain once I got to 14. It was just like, I was telling you pre-show, I feel like I'm missing someone. I feel like there's somebody obvious because nothing feels obvious after this point. And that's what I kind of mentioned. Like, I feel like this tier, starting with a CD Lamb, could be 7, 8 guys. Let me know down in the chat who you think could sneak into that group. Because I am definitely open to a discussion after 13.
So you went with DJ and I went with T
Higgins.
T. Higgins, right? So,
and I feel like T. Higgins is in that conversation. I feel like Tyler Lockett's probably in that conversation. Maybe a guy like
they're
Amari
kind of
Cooper
interchangeable
still.
anyway.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's definitely a few guys you could talk about right there. So that's my list. Let me know who I missed down below. And we'll certainly jump to any comments of yours as we move to quarterbacks. But yeah, feel free to talk some more wide receivers if you have thoughts there as we move to this. So our lists are relatively similar here. Very much like our lists of wide receivers, but a lot of the discrepancy comes. Oh, big take in the chat. Calvin Ridley, top 5 receiver. I think he's in that tier I was just talking about, the CeeDee Lamb and everything. I hope he comes back and is awesome, but that's certainly a fun one. And it's tough to like you'll see it in my quarterback. Like neither of us had Kyler in the top 15. And I think that I think that's just kind of projecting towards 2023 more than anything. And it's similar to Calvin Ridley, where it's like, he's in that conversation, but we haven't seen him out there in in a full season. So
it's a good point, but also obviously he's not top 5 yet, but he is. But he is going to be playing. He's going to be playing with his best quarterback of his career. So
100%.
I'm very excited to see him gel in this offense.
Yeah, Christian Kirk's in there.
Yeah,
it's a good
veteran
mix.
presence as well. That can help him out. So I'm really excited. I think Trevor's going to love Calvin Ridley. Just running up and down the seam, finding pockets over the middle, especially with Travis Etienne running out of the backfield. This team is just really good this year, the Jags.
Yeah, pretty non sequitur, but I think Calvin Ridley's the best comp to Jordan Addison.
Oh yeah,
not a real burner, pretty slight frame, but just a really good route runner, really good hands. So yeah, I'm excited to see him back on the field for sure.
Mm-hmm.
The whole gambling thing's bullshit, unless it's happening to the Lions. I'll allow that.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into QBs here. Now so we had all of the same names.
Yeah. Okay.
In the top 10.
Okay.
Unless I'm getting a little dyslexic here, but I think we had all the same names in the top 10, just slightly different order.
Okay.
Mahomes, I think, goes without saying, but then you've got Burrow over your guy Josh Allen. Tell me a little bit about that, and then round out the top 10 a little bit.
Oh yeah, so I got Burrow over Josh because he kind of proved it. I thought in the playoffs. I mean, in that situation, it's like wouldn't the home team quarterback have an advantage? And obviously the O-line didn't give Josh any favors or didn't do any favors. But Joe Burrow's O-line, I'm pretty sure they were missing 3 or 4 starting offensive linemen before all throughout the week. I was so excited. I was so excited about it. Yeah, there you
go. This guy's shooting from the hip tonight. Yeah. Zachary, thanks for tuning in, man.
But so I think that all throughout the year, we all thought the 3 AFC quarterbacks in the top 3, in the league. So they're interchangeable. Mahomes is number 1, and then it's Burrow and Josh. It kind of just if we're gonna go down to Joe, I can't make a valid point that Josh is over him. So I'm gonna put Burrow there. He's just had an unbelievable season, and he's cold-blooded, man. He does things I love it. I just can't hate on and I can't hate on Pat either. There's really no way. Hurts proved himself. He, as I was saying with the receivers, AJ Brown, unbelievable talent that comes in, and they get Devontae Smith obviously in the draft. They've been just a perfect storm for Jalen Hurts. And then we go with Aaron. I can't justify taking Aaron out of the top 5 just yet, especially with the team that he has around New York. Herbert and Lawrence are completely interchangeable. If people like Trevor over Herbert, that's fine. Dak, we love Dak on this show. I think we love Dallas this season. I think that he's going to have a really good year. So, looking forward to the season. I like him at 8. Lamar, he's got, a lot going for him now, finally getting his contract, finally getting his praise, and people are coming to play with him. You got a guy like D-Hop saying it would be an honor to play with Lamar. Mark Andrews is still there. Rashad Bateman, Odell. It's going to be exciting for that. And then Kirk, top 10, man. Of course, I got Kirk. He had an unbelievable season. And, just because of one playoff loss, everybody thinks he's all of a sudden out of the top 10. I don't think so. He's still, his team is still favored to win this division, and it's a tough division in the North. So I don't think that Kirk Cousins, just because, they go down and come back in games, that doesn't mean he's playing bad. So Kirk is still in the top 10, in my opinion. Geno's at 11. The completion king. He's just adding guys. JSN's coming in. You got Lockett and TK. It's an incredible receiving crew. And then Tua, he's got it's a lot to do with like the weapons around these guys. There's so many quarterbacks that have a lot of talent, but just don't have that supporting cast. The guys in the top 15 certainly do. Stafford's coming back. I'm gonna give him his flowers. He's a Super Bowl champ. He's coming back. I'm excited to see him. I can't take him out of the top 15 just yet. And then Daniel Jones and Jared Goff, two like stories that I just didn't expect to be in the top 15 before last year started. But Jared has been great, and Daniel Jones, he's really proved himself to be like a solid quarterback. And I think with Brian Dable in that offense, they're going to have a chance to really make some noise this year.
Yeah, I agree. Where we differ a little bit, I think, is like the back five of this. But like I said, we have the same names in the top 10. Keebler, Daniel Jones had 15 touchdowns last year. And that was his best year of his career.
Yeah.
This one's fun. Yeah, this one's kind of funny.
Yeah.
That's kind of the story of a lot of these guys.
But that's true. Yeah, absolutely.
You just feel like once they get there, it's just like, well, your confidence dips a little bit once it turns January, for sure. But here are mine. So yeah, we've got the same top 10 there, just a slightly different order. So like I've got Herbert at 4. I've got him right above Jalen Hurts right now.
Okay.
I love Jalen. I just think from an ability, like as a thrower of the football, I think Herbert's, in the same class as a Josh Allen. Maybe not in his prime, but currently as like an Aaron Rodgers. Like the dude can just fucking sling it. And I think, as a processor, he's really grown. Coming into this season with Kellen Moore calling the shots. I'm excited to see how this offense looks. Adding Quentin Johnston to the mix, who wouldn't have been my pick if they're taking a receiver there. We know I would have had him taken Zay Flowers like we did on our mock. But I like Herbert just a tad more than Hurts right now. I want to see it again from Jalen Hurts. He's been playing behind the best offensive line in football. Phenomenal system. A better duo to throw to in A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith than, whatever percentage of Keenan Allen and Mike Williams you're getting.
We've talked about it, man. It's always like
staying healthy.
Who's even playing for him?
Right. 6 was about as low as I was comfortable dropping A-Raj. But all those guys ahead of him in the top 5, I'd rather start my team with this year for 1 year. That's sort of the way I was thinking of it. I like Lamar Jackson to come back strong. I've got T-Law at 8. I think Cousins and Dak are pretty interchangeable at 9 and 10. Frankly, I mean, Cousins, Dak, Geno, and Goff, I feel like that's a tier for me. I've just got Cousins up top. The guy's got fucking adamantium bones. He eats these hits and he gets up every time. He has not missed a start since he gained a starting job in Washington in 2015 because of injury. He's played every single game. He's rested with the starters in Week 18 twice. And some of the hits he takes are so vicious. It's pretty unbelievable. I like Dak too. We like Dak on this show. It's not a lot was made of the interception count last year. A lot of those were off receivers' hands, frankly. And what he's able to bring in the low red zone as well as a runner, and creating in the pocket, I think is great. I think you could probably have him over Kirk for that reason. But just the consistency and the durability of Cousins is something that I think's probably attractive to the front office. It's why I think he's getting guaranteed money every time he's at the negotiating table. He's like, listen, I'm not going to get hurt. I'm getting back up. So take that for what it's worth. Then I've got Geno at 11. I think you had him at 11 too. I've got Goff right after him. I think, the Ben Johnson offense has been revelatory for him, kind of getting back to his number one overall pick billing. He throws a really pretty deep ball, and he's starting to settle into himself. I feel like he used to get really jittery early on in his career. Stafford at 14, I'm kind of the same thing as you, like there's the body of work thing. Sure, his elbow might be shot, but if it's not, he can't be outside my top 15. I've got Carr at 13. I think he's good.
I was thinking about him too. I was really thinking
fine.
about him. Yeah.
Right. Like there are a couple guys I could maybe be talked into over Carr, potentially. Like I could see a Daniel Jones getting into that conversation. I could see like a well, I don't know. Maybe a few other guys who could crack the top 15, but then I've got Stafford. I've got Tua rounding it out. If he's healthy,
and
he's dialed in, like he's putting the ball where it needs to go. Not the best arm strength, not the most durable guy, but when he's on the field, it's just he's accurate. He gets a lot of air under the ball.
Yes, he
which
does.
Can be a bad thing. But he's got great touch on the other side of that coin. And if he could let go of the ball like 10 yards earlier, he's probably hitting Tyreek in stride. He's probably hitting Waddle in stride. And his numbers probably even look a little bit better. So, all right. Oh, James caught that one. I know you'd catch that one, James. Adamantium bones for Kirk is what I was saying. Not even a top 10 with that system. Yeah, it's going to be a tough racket in New York, I think, for A-Raj. I think, though, that defense is going to help a lot. I don't think it's a great cast of weapons for him.
You see Allen Lazard's already hurt.
Yeah, I did. So. He's got another great backfield to work with, but he had that last year, and he didn't look great last year. I think if they commit to, running the ball to set up the pass, it's going to help him out a lot. Garrett Wilson could take a huge step forward with Rodgers under center. And the arm talent's still there. He just looked like he was psyched out last year. Like he just looked like a different guy than we'd seen before in his back-to-back MVP seasons. So, maybe this rejuvenates him a little bit, slipping on the green and slipping on a different shade of green, I should say. And but I'm with you. I'm a Vikings guy, Lee. I'm not a big Rodgers guy, but that's about as low as I was willing to put him. All right. Well, let's see it. What's he talking about? Oh, I think that's from before. Yeah.
Yeah, At least
I'm looking
they
at
drafted somebody, right?
They need more weapons for sure. Isaiah Hodgins was getting a lot of targets. I think we found out Zach's a Giants fan. I wasn't sure with the whole Ridley grandstanding and then the Daniel Jones thing. I was waiting to hear another comment.
He's a Giants fan.
But yeah, I won't dismiss any sort of Jones takes, but I'm kind of in the camp of Daniel Jones is hashtag not good. I don't think he deserves that contract. I think they're going to regret it. I think the team's good, and I think they're going to be good. I just don't feel like this is all of a sudden going to be this exponential growth for Daniel Jones going forward. He's got some tools. He's fantastic with his legs in the design run game. So, that's definitely an asset to him. I just think over this offseason and over the to the end of last year, I think it got overblown a little bit with him. I think we'll come back to earth a little bit on Daniel Jones. 4 years, 160 was a little rough. He's in the area of New York that's a Giants fan. You're just a little north, huh, Nick?
Yeah. What I got on Daniel is that so I think Dable saw Josh in him. He's like 6'5", he can run. I can do
Yeah, that's what we said.
You know what I mean?
That's what we said last year. It's like a diet Josh Allen.
Right. So in that case, Dable was like, okay, I just did a couple of years with Josh. I made him very good. And now I'm going to New York with the Giants. And I have a guy who has that potential. Obviously, he's not as talented. And I think that you're right that if he didn't have Brian Dable in the system that he has, maybe he wouldn't be as good, right? Maybe he wouldn't have these opportunities. Maybe he wouldn't have gotten this contract. I don't know if he's just not, up to par with the talent, component of the NFL, but he's obviously proved that he can be a fantastic, runner, but as we saw with Josh, you cannot continue to do that because it's just not sustainable. So,
it's buying him time to develop.
Yeah, he's gonna get his time. I mean, the contract was a little overblown and a little ridiculous for the fact that he's not there yet. But he had a really, really good game against the Vikings both times. And, obviously they got blown out by the Eagles, but I think that he'll be serviceable to good. And I think that when I was looking at the other quarterbacks around basically what I was doing when I was doing my list is I was looking at all of the team NFL, and I was like, did they have a top 15 quarterback? There's so many. I was like, I wanted to put in Deshaun Watson almost, or Russell Wilson almost, but those guys have not proven right now in 2023 that they should be in my top 15. Russell Wilson needs to prove himself before he can get back in there. And Deshaun Watson has not looked like Watson of old so far. And I think that his mind is a little, off the rails a little bit. So for those guys who are ultra talented to get back in the top 15, they just got themselves to be what they once were. And for now, I'm going to put a guy like Daniel Jones there just because of how great of a season him and the Giants. And they really, really, they were like the Knicks. Nobody expected them to do it. All of a sudden in the playoffs, win a game, win a series, same type of deal.
Yeah, for sure. And Dable, I think, played a huge role in that, definitely. But to James's comment, I think the best we saw of Ryan Tannehill is kind of the ceiling you're shooting for with Daniel Jones. You know what I mean? I think Tannehill, started college as a receiver, had some shake and bake to him, and as he aged out, that mobility kind of bought him time to develop as a thrower. And I think that's kind of the early stage Daniel Jones is in. I think he could turn into a top 10 quarterback, a fringe top 10 guy, if he improves in that department. And like I said, as those things start to even out, as age and wear and tear start to turn him off of running so much, hopefully that development as a thrower, kind of increases adversely. And then, all of a sudden you're looking at a pretty good quarterback who can move within the pocket and make all the throws. He's got a good arm. It's just something I'm going to need to see a little more consistently. And, I think with more weapons in that offense, you'll start to at least be able to – it's like we talked about with Justin Fields. Like, have we seen enough around him to really give him a fair evaluation yet? Maybe not. Maybe now that DJ Moore, Chase Claypool are there, maybe this year is a real litmus test where it's like, okay, what can you do with an NFL offense? For DJ, it's sort of the same thing where it's like, yeah, like I don't think he was there last year with what he was working with, but who really would be? I'm just not necessarily giving the tie to the runner in that case, I guess is kind of where I'm at with him. 2019 Tannehill.
They were good. I think that was the team that dethroned Tom Brady with the Patriots, right? Is that
29? Yeah, because 18 they won it.
And then they crushed Lamar. Yeah, that was a great team. That was a fun
18
team.
They won it, AFC Championship year, I think, yeah. Age and trades have turned it into nothingness. It's Robinson's fault, James. Don't blame Vrabel. Don't blame the age. He's gone now, James. He's gone now. You can rest easy. Maybe this guy won't fuck it up further.
The bad man's
yeah. Yeah, he's with us. So I mean that kind of rounds it out. Like there's some interesting things within here, I think. It's tough. It's difficult. Like I said, it's difficult to cut it off at 15. Maybe we'll do something like a tiers, getting a little bit closer to the season, and we can do that, all the way through 32 or 36 or however many guys we feel like could be viable starters. But let us know who we left out of our top 15s, who's too high, too low, all that jazz. But you can see my tag right below Johnny NFL there. This is something I didn't want to end the show without talking about. Christian Darrisaw has a new helmet, and it's like the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Oh, really?
Yeah, dude. I sent this to my buddies today. And here we go. Share screen. And he looks like a Power Ranger. Check that out.
Oh, I like that. He does.
Dude, isn't that sick?
Never seen that type of helmet before.
Dude, me neither. It's the first time I've ever seen it. It's like I wonder if it's extra like, padding right at the forehead so you can kind of, and maybe it's just room for that, or it's, the shell of it that's more aerodynamic or something, but like that was my favorite thing I've seen today. Kirk has a new helmet too. It's looking pretty cool.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but then as far as like, I thought we could talk just a little bit of, yeah, did you see the little Power Rangers thing?
Yeah. It's fucking bad.
Yeah. But so I thought we could talk a little bit of, just kind of news and notes throughout the league. Just touch on some things. And one thing I wanted to talk about was, I'm seeing a lot of these rankings come out for, let's say, quarterbacks, and it'll be a fantasy ranking, ranking within the confines of fantasy points.
Yeah. And
people get really pissed about it. And a guy like Cousins is never in there, right? It's the guy, it's the dual threat guys like Fields usually cracks that top 10, and everything like that. So that's why I kind of wanted to go through ours and, just talk about on the field, helping your team win more than anything. Diab is still a Cardinal. Yeah, he kind of backtracked. On that whole trade request. But
did he though? Because But did he though? Because yesterday, like, there was a video, and it was like on the pod. I don't know if you saw it. But it was like a podcast, and he was asked, who would like love to play with, and it was like Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, like Lamar
Well,
Jackson. And it was
didn't
like,
he say
but
something
he's
like, "I
still
just want to
saying
play
things
with
like that. He
somebody"?
didn't really backtrack.
Yeah, he said he wants to just play with somebody who loves the game or something like that. And he was
I think
like,
he posted in Arizona on Instagram and said, like, I'm still here. Like, of course you're still here. You realize you didn't get traded, and now you have to be like, all right, guys, my bad.
"All right, OTAs, I'll be there." All
Exactly. Like,
right.
he realized, like, if he got traded, he would have been ecstatic. But since he wasn't, he's
Yeah,
like, his agent was probably like, DeAndre, you gotta like stop with the rumors. Like, we're not trading you. So I don't think that was him. I think that was just coming from his agent and like higher ups
sure.
within him. I still think that he wants to go somewhere where a quarterback is more servable than whoever's quarterbacking in Arizona this year. So,
Yeah. I got you, Nate. Don't worry, brother. You'll
yeah,
see him in a second.
yeah, there he is.
There he is for you. Just made it. I was thinking of you too, man. But like, I really want to see him on a different team
Yeah,
really bad, just because, like I said, I mean, in my synopsis of this top 15, like I still think he's got plenty of gas in the tank. Shredded the Vikes last year. Had some big games. He's still one of the best red zone targets at the wide receiver position. Still able to high point the ball at a really high level. He's able to get separation without elite speed, and his catch radius is huge for his height. That's right, Lee. Colt McCoy is not someone to look forward to. As much as he may love the game, I don't know if that's enough for DeAndre Hopkins to keep him relevant. And that's I think what I want to see is I just want to see DeAndre Hopkins relevant with a good quarterback on a good team with a chance to make a playoff run.
yeah,
And whether that's
and
the
producing in big moments. Yeah,
right, like, I mean, I even wanted, like, on those Texans teams that snuck in with JJ and DeAndre Hopkins, Will Fuller every other week, and Deshaun when he was good. Like, I was kind of rooting for those teams because I love JJ, I love DeAndre Hopkins, and I just want to see him back in it. And Nate would have liked him before the DJ trade. Yeah, I think they probably just wanted to pair Fields with a younger, about as young a trio as you could get. Some fits, Lee brought up Baltimore. They'd kind of be tripling down at receiver this offseason doing that. But I wouldn't hate that fit personally because all of a sudden, the only guy you're pushing down in that group is like a Devin Duvernay, and then all of a sudden you're out of 11 personnel, you've got Mark Andrews, DeAndre Hopkins, Odell Beckham Jr., and Rashad Bateman on the field. Maybe Dev Duve is in the slot in that scenario. Zay Flowers can do a lot of different things.
I mean, I got 4 potential fits for DeAndre.
So that could get crowded, but yeah, what do you got, Nick?
Obviously the Bills have been like riding Josh. Like, he really wants to play with the Bills.
Bills would be so cool.
So that's a fit. Like, that's fine. Kansas City, he's already expressed that he'd like to play with Mahomes. Fine. So, but I think that the ones that are a little more underrated are Baltimore, as Liam brought up, and also Green Bay. I think it would be really interesting for Jordan Love for his first hit, other than Christian Watson, to be like DeAndre Hopkins. So he has him and Christian Watson, and I feel like that's a team that could make a playoff push. I know your face. I understand your pain if that would happen, but I think that D-Hop, that would just help a young quarterback kind of blossom and then having some confidence and having a star receiver on the team.
Yeah. So you said Buffalo, KC, Green Bay,
and Baltimore.
Yeah, I mean, those are all interesting. I've heard New England floated around a little bit.
I don't think he wants to play with Mac Jones.
I don't think he would want that, right?
No.
But New England's got to find a way to get some wide receiver talent on that roster. They don't do well through the draft in that department. Lee says, how about a reunion in Cleveland? They are really thin after Amari Cooper, so that could be interesting. Zach knows the team. Yes, he does.
That's a good point, I guess.
That'd be cool. That'd be really cool. I think that would be an interesting one for sure. But then you got to think about too, like, I think any of those teams in the NFC South could really separate themselves with the addition of a DeAndre Hopkins, just because I think you're really splitting hairs between Carolina, New Orleans, and Atlanta at the moment for me. I think you had DeAndre Hopkins to any of those teams. That's probably the favorite. Just because what he's going to be able to do to help out a Ritter, a Bryce Young, or a veteran like Derek Carr, winning those jump balls, having a veteran wide receiver you can really count on to be where he needs to be when you need him to be there. So, I mean, they're probably going to want to trade him out of conference if they can. But at the same time, like this year is sort of a throwaway year for Arizona. So I think it's just all about the return for them. And it shouldn't be too steep. I mean, Amari Cooper got a fifth. And Hopkins is a little bit older than he was, better in his prime than he was as well. But yeah, I mean, he could go a lot of different places, frankly. But if he's,
but will he go anywhere?
Right.
Though?
Right. If he's getting his pick, he's probably gonna get a pound the table for a KC, for a Buffalo,
or Baltimore.
But I don't know, man. If they keep him locked up over there, that, like, I wonder what, if you're damaging the relationship to the point where it's like, well, like if you want to keep him for when Kyler's back healthy and make a run next year, like, are you damaging that relationship anyway by keeping him on the roster when he wants out? And like, in that same vein, are they going to give him what he wants when it comes to trade talks? Are they going to take a fifth instead of a fourth if it means sending him to a team that he wants to go to? So all of those, kind of interpersonal dynamics of it are kind of interesting, because you really don't know what the market is for him, and you don't know how the front office feels internally about moving on from him.
I suppose it would be a mid-season acquisition for one of these teams.
Yeah.
If he's not dealt in this offseason and everybody thinks all of a sudden, oh, wow, like they're coming in jail in Arizona, like he could definitely also be dealt like to Buffalo or Kansas City or Baltimore.
Could drive the price up a little bit too if
teams, like these teams is like 9-1 and it's like, all right, let's make a playoff push. Last year it was Odell and it didn't happen. This year it could be Hopkins and it's like DeAndre's traded, that team. I like kind of like Odell when he was traded to the Rams with Von Miller in their Super Bowl year.
Yeah, and you wonder, if as part of that, like, the Vikings just moved Zadarius Smith to Cleveland, and as part of that deal, they took on a little bit more of his guaranteed money and increased his dead cap hit over here to kind of ease the transaction for Cleveland a little bit. But Hopkins right now, if he's moved, the team trading for him will still take on something like $20 million, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so if maybe I'll look that up, see if it tells me. Because I think, there are some things that Arizona can do to, like I said, kind of ease that transaction on the acquiring team. But how much of that are they willing to pay for a receiver that's not going to be on the roster? $22 million of his contract is guaranteed. And so it is a bit of a pickle, if all they're doing is holding out to to, let's say, hang on to him through this season and cut him after the season, the dead cap hit is cut in half at that point. Only about 11 million's guaranteed next year. So that could be their thought. But it comes back to the thing where it's like, well, this is it's also kind of a throwaway year for them. So how much are they worried about the 2023 cap at a certain point? I'm going to check while we're on the subject on over the cap and just get some exact figures just to see what that might look like for a D-Hop trade. There are some other names I've seen floating around as potential trade candidates. If James is still in the chat, he can let us know if there's any credence to the Jeffrey Simmons rumors. I've also even heard some Quinnen Williams rumors,
wow,
which is wild. And a few other guys I can't think of at the moment. Have you heard any other just kind of wild trade rumors swirling? Those are the big ones that have jumped out to me in the past months. I mean, I know the off season gets a little wild in that department, but those are ones I heard pretty recently.
Yeah, not too much. I heard that Buda Baker might be dealt to Washington, which was kind of interesting to me. That was a Sports Illustrated.
Buda. Yeah, that's right.
So Baker to Washington, I mean, that'd be kind of
Buda Baker in Washington.
Yeah.
That'd be really interesting because I wonder then because Bobby McCain's gone, they've got Cam Curl, Derek Forrest. Cam Curl he's been playing a little bit of overhang. That could be a really interesting fit with Buda. Did he get an extension, James? Wow.
Yeah, he did.
I must have missed that. I probably heard that before that took place.
Yeah, so he signed 4 years, $94 million with Tennessee.
Okay, so that just barely tops Deron Payne's number, which makes plenty of sense.
It's a good deal.
Extra $1 million a year for him there.
I remember when he was drafted, he was just like this huge man. I was like, there's no way he can be a bust.
Yeah, it was just the injury concerns for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kevin Byard, that was the thing. It was just he's so good, dude. I still feel like he's in that top 4 safeties in the league, 5 safeties in the league. That's tough to refute. Like he's been so good. He has great ball production. He's pretty sticky in coverage, really smart player, key part of that defense. That is kind of some disrespect. Refused the pay cut, not at optional.
Yeah, I remember
OTAs, which, granted, Justin Jefferson isn't at OTAs, but I think that's just because he doesn't feel like it, and he's Justin Jefferson. I don't think it's a contract dispute. Yeah, they're wide receivers, man. They're out on the town. They're doing what they want to do. It's the off season.
And honestly, if they're training being at OTAs, I have no problem with that at all. Like if they let me know, if they tell me that if they tell me that I'm out in whatever right now in Miami, LA, that's totally fine with me. But if you're messing around, it's a little different.
Right. Yeah, so with the Hopkins move, the acquiring team would take on about $19.5 million. So that's tough. With a Buda Baker move, the acquiring team would take on about $13 million if nothing is reworked there for a 27-year-old safety who's one of the better ones in the game. Really wants to win, gets a little emotional about not winning, So that's got to be something you'd like to have on your team. We saw the Hard Knocks highlights. I didn't watch much of that because they were so terrible.
Yeah.
But we saw the highlight where he was, in the locker room, very emotional, tired of losing, and he's going to get more and more tired of losing if he sticks around in Arizona. So that's one I could see for sure. To Washington's an interesting fit, especially when, like, this is another one that just popped into my head. They did not pick up Chase Young's fifth-year option.
Yeah, no.
So, I mean, that trade comes with a new deal immediately. That's a Bradley Chubb situation. But that could be a guy who's potentially on the move for Washington. And if that's the case, they might want to, recoup some value on the defensive side of the ball to keep that unit strong. Montez Sweat is another guy in that edge group who, maybe you're extending him, but it sounds like they might not bring either of them back long term, which seems nuts just because Derrick Henry showed up at OTAs. He's never there. See, yeah, I mean, the great players, they're getting their work in. They're eating right,
I think he was probably bored.
He's probably getting bored and just wanted to see his buddies. But yeah, like, there's always a curveball cut or a curveball trade come preseason.
True.
We'll see a couple of contract holdouts once we get a little bit closer to that. So that could get interesting. But outside of that, I haven't heard any other like huge names. There were a couple of, and while we're on the subject, I'll just pull up all of the fifth-year options because I was just looking at this list that were picked up and weren't. So these guys all had their fifth-year options declined. It was Chase Young, Patrick Queen in Baltimore, Isaiah Simmons of the Cardinals, Kayvon Kason in Jacksonville, Javon Kinlaw for the 49ers, our boy Green 80s, Jordan Brooks, Kenneth Murray for the Chargers, CJ Henderson, Noah Igbenogany, Mekhi Becton, Cesar Ruiz, Austin Jackson, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Jalen Reagor of the Vikings. So some interesting names there. Like, out of that list, Jordan Brooks is dealing with some injuries. Obviously Chase Young at the top, but out of those guys, and I'll share the screen here too, out of those guys, who do you feel like is the most intriguing to onlooking GMs as they're seeing these player options declined?
I mean, I've seen a lot on Patrick Queen, probably the most on him. So I probably, so for me, it's going to be Patrick Queen. I like offensive linemen a lot, so probably Mekhi Becton. I think that Mekhi Becton has the potential to be a really, really good player in this league, but he just hasn't been like the right situation for what he needed to do after he was drafted. He has a potential. I mean, he's always hurt. They're like moving to tackle, he needs to be a guard, so Becton has a potential good player. I heard a lot on Patrick Queen, and then the other guys. Obviously, there's going to be some stuff on everybody else, but Javon Kinlaw and Jordan Brooks, they're interesting as well. Yeah, for me, it's definitely Patrick Queen or Mekhi Becton.
Yeah, Lee brings up a good point too. Pacheco cheaper. Yeah. Much lower investment in the draft as well. The swing at Clyde Edwards-Helaire is kind of one of those screw it, we've got such a good roster. Let's just take a running back in the first round that we feel like really could give us, help us take that next step. And it's kind of a best player available thing. let's take this guy. We're not worried about positional value. We've got a great roster. And it was kind of a whiff. He's been really underwhelming in the NFL. They've gotten better production from guys like Pacheco, Jet McKinnon, in the big moments in particular. So I'm not surprised they didn't pick his up. Panthers turning down C.J. Henderson's is kind of interesting, since they just traded for him. He's still got all the physical tools. Another first round pick in Miami, Noah Igbenogany. He's been playing some slot, a little bit of boundary, 5'11" or so. Big time hype coming out of school, but like, I'm not super surprised with that one. I'm not super surprised with Kenneth Murray. I'm not particularly surprised with Isaiah Simmons. He's another one of these guys that Arizona drafts, and they think things are just going to figure themselves out. They're like, okay, well, let's bring in another athletic, non-instinctive linebacker
that could also play safety,
and just see what the hell happens. Yeah, like, and now he's playing safety in a pinch. He's got the speed for it, but like, he's this tweener, and it's not like, I don't think it's quite a Hassan Reddick situation, who they were, playing off the ball most of his Arizona career, and then he goes and gets 10 plus sacks everywhere else on the edge. I don't think Isaiah Simmons would be like a true edge, but like, I think there are certainly better ways to utilize him. And whether that is off the ball, whether that's as sort of a tight end eraser, I think there just has to be more of a concerted effort to develop him at one thing or another. And they don't seem particularly interested in reinvesting in doing so. Cesar Ruiz of the Saints, a little surprising. Just because that O-line's been so solid. Ruiz has been decent. The tackle duo is obviously in place over there, and maybe this is just we don't want to pay that price tag of the 5th-year option. Maybe we're still come back to the negotiating table with these guys. But for the Vikings, I don't think Jalen Reagor should come back. Kirk threw 2 interceptions in the Colts game, and they were both 100% Jalen Reagor's fault. Like, there was one on a deep cross, and so he was running into the deep third safety coming across to the opposite boundary. It was something like a cover 3 look, or it might have even been quarters with the safety dropping into a robber on that opposite side. But he's coming towards the deep safety. Kirk airs it out for him because that, if Jalen Reagor's at a full sprint, this is the one time to give him a shot. He can't run a route to save his life. If he's just on his horse, give him a shot. And the ball got into the air, and Reagor just stopped running.
Yep.
And I can still pull the clip up on my Twitter. You can see Kevin O'Connell losing his mind on the sideline. He's flapping the clipboard and just yelling at Reagor because he just gave up on the play. And that's just kind of been the story with Jalen Reagor. He had the talent coming in, just hasn't really been realizing that potential. And maybe that's a matter of putting the work in. Maybe that's a matter of learning the playbook. Maybe he looks a lot better this year with year 2 in the playbook. But we'll see. So that's all we've got for news and notes. If you guys have any other smack to talk, jump in the comments before we hop off here. Nick, any closing thoughts? Anything else you'd like to touch on before we get out of here?
No, I think that's thought we touched on the receivers really good, and the quarterbacks. I mean, it's so tough to get those tight ends just because It always fluctuates. There's always guys that you think that, especially on the receivers, you think that these guys are like number one, right? This is number one this year, Cup, right? And then all of a sudden now we have them at 6 and 7, and I was a little skeptical about putting AJ Brown at 4, but I was glad you put him at 4 as well. So it kind of like
yeah
helped me out in my I was like, okay, we both got him there. So
yep.
Yeah, I think we did a good job. A lot of the same picks, a lot of different opinions as well. So yeah, pretty good. I'm excited for next week.
Here you go, Zach. Before we get
that?
out of here.
Oh gosh.
Look who's both on there, Zach. Guys.
Oh, look at that. That's great.
Yeah.
That's so wholesome.
Mm-hmm. It's all a coincidence, Zach. It's nothing to do with the time of day. Maybe. I don't know. Beats the shit out of me. I think it's a stupid narrative, but it also kind of keeps happening. Over the course of his career, he's pretty much 500, but
yeah, it's pretty fun.
Whatever. We'll see what happens. Ooh, boss man's liking that setup, Nick. Mike.
I'm just back home, man.
He's just back home. Nice.
Thanks, Trev.
Yeah, Trev, you missed it. Nick's all graduated.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, Zach. We can come together on this one. We got clutch QBs.
Yeah, I love to see that.
If nothing else, they're clutch. All right. Well, thanks everybody who Lee hit the nail on the head right here. This is kind of what we were saying, we felt really good about our top 8 to 10 to 11 guys. I felt pretty good after 13. And then it was just there's 15, 20 guys who are in this conversation for sure.
Yep.
And it becomes a matter of preference, and it could fluctuate week to week, year to year. So I'm sure we'll revisit this a little bit later in the off season. I think next time we'll do tiers. But next week, let's decide right now. I haven't decided the order in which we're going to do this yet, as I've been putting on the show together. But I think rankings, if nothing else, is engaging, and it's a fun conversation to have. But yes, everybody, there's everybody in that tier. There's 20 guys we could have a conversation about. But all that being said, Calvin Ridley's better than DJ Moore. Everything else could be the
I kind of you want to do running back, something else, maybe safeties.
Yeah, we could do running backs, and then I wonder if we should do, when we get to O-line, I wonder if we should do offensive lines by team, or tackles and interior guys.
Wow.
Because I think it'd be a little tough to do even a top 10 of left tackle, left guard, center, right guard, right tackle.
Yeah.
Because guys.
And at the end of the day, ultimately, it boils down to which teams has the best. It's not
right, it's a unit.
The Eagles had the best. It's not this guy was the best. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I like that. I wouldn't mind doing a top, however many tackles. Maybe, but yeah, let's do O-lines, and let's do running backs, and then if we have time to get to something else, maybe we will. But next week we'll do running backs, O-lines. We'll round out the offense, and then we'll get into defense from there. Excuse me. With defense, we'll do edge, interior defensive line, linebacker, corner, safety. So we'll have 5 categories there. We might try to do that. We might try to add one of those to next week's show, and then do 2 and 2, since it might be a longer conversation for some of those defenders. But yeah, let's go running backs and offensive line next week. So stay tuned. Come back next Tuesday. Give us hell in the comments about our running back and offensive line rankings. You'll see us right here at 9, 8 Central every Tuesday, talking ball This has been Necessary Roughness on the Bite Size Sports Network. Stay tuned the rest of the week as well for all of our other live shows on the network. We've got another Damn Fantasy podcast on Wednesdays with this man right here who loves Nick's setup, Trevor, and Dan Portillo. And then we've got The Bounce on Thursday nights, 9, 8 Central. I'll be on there this week filling in for our buddy James right here, who will be out of town, but myself, Kev, and our DJ Moore fan will be there talking hoops with you. We'll likely be talking finals matchup by the time we get to Thursday, unless the Celtics make a little bit more noise. Nick, do you have the score by chance right now?
The Celtics are up double digits in the end of the third.
Ah, man, get it over with. So maybe not quite a finals matchup yet, but one way or the other. And then, of course, we'll have some late night bites on the channel, which is just Kev and whomever else talking about random sports stuff, hanging out. And then we might even hop on playback for an NBA game or two once we get to the finals, maybe this weekend or before we get to next Tuesday's show. So stay tuned, guys. Thanks for everybody who jumped into the comments. It's always a blast when you guys do. So let's keep talking ball next Tuesday. We'll see you then. Thanks, guys.
Sounds good. Peace.
Oh, I'll get this one in. Go Hawks. Go Vikes.